These 4 stories all started like normal school days. A walk home, a locker, an empty hallway, a teacher everyone trusted. Then something changed, and by the time each person realized something was wrong, they were already alone. Let's begin. Story 1. The man who followed us home from school. I used to ride my bike home from school with my friend. Most days, we took the same route. Past the school parking lot, down a quiet road, then through a small path near a park that led back toward our neighborhood. It was normal. Until one afternoon, after staying late for a school project, we noticed a man behind us. At first, we didn't think much of it. He was just walking. People walk near parks all the time. But then we turned, and he turned too. We slowed down. He slowed down. We sped up. He did the same. My friend looked at me and whispered, "Is he following us?" I didn't answer, because I already knew. We decided not to go straight home. Instead, we took a different road. A road we never used. The man followed. That was when the fear really hit. This wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't just someone going the same way. He was staying behind us on purpose. We started pedaling faster. The path ahead was almost empty. No cars, no adults, just trees, fading daylight, and the sound of our bike tires on the road. Then the man called out, "Hey!" Neither of us looked back. He called again, louder this time. "Come here for a second." My friend said, "Don't stop." So we didn't. We rode as fast as we could. At one point, I looked back. He was not walking anymore. He was running. That image stayed in my head for years. A grown man running after 2 kids on bikes after school. We cut across a field, jumped off our bikes, and ran toward the nearest house with lights on. The man stopped at the edge of the field. He just stood there, watching. Then he turned around and walked away. We never found out who he was. But after that day, we never took that path again. And for the rest of the school year, I looked behind me every time I left campus. Being followed after school is terrifying because the danger comes from outside. But the next story is worse, because this time, the person was already inside the school. Story 2. The boy who knew my schedule. In 9th grade, there was a boy at my school who I barely knew. We had one class together. That was it. At first, he seemed harmless, quiet, awkward, maybe just lonely. Then one day, he texted me. The problem was, I had never given him my number. I asked him how he got it. He said, "Don't worry about it." I should have blocked him right there. But I was young, and I didn't want to be rude, so I ignored most of the messages. Then he started showing up in places he shouldn't have been. Outside my classroom, near my locker, by the school entrance after the final bell. At lunch, I would look across the cafeteria and see him staring. Not glancing, staring. One day, he told me he knew which bus I took. Another day, he mentioned the street I lived on. I remember feeling my body go cold because I had never told him that. After that, I tried to stay with friends as much as possible, but he kept finding moments when I was alone. One afternoon, I stayed late to talk to a teacher. When I came out, the hallway was almost empty. Most students had already left. I walked toward my locker, and there he was, standing beside it, like he had been waiting. He smiled and said, "You took longer than usual." That was when I realized he wasn't just randomly showing up. He knew my routine. He knew where I went. He knew when I was alone. I didn't say anything. I turned around and walked straight back to the classroom I had just left. The teacher asked what was wrong, and for the first time, I told an adult everything. The messages, the staring, the locker, the bus, the street. After that, the school got involved. He stopped approaching me directly, but even months later, I would still catch him watching from across the hall. And the part that bothered me most was never the staring. It was the first message, because I still don't know how he got my number. Sometimes the scariest person at school is another student, but sometimes it is someone everyone tells you to trust. Story 3. The teacher. Everyone liked him. That was the first problem. He was the kind of teacher students joked with. Parents trusted him. Other teachers respected him. He was friendly. Too friendly. At first, I thought I was imagining it. He would make comments that felt just a little too personal. He remembered small details I didn't remember telling him. He asked questions that had nothing to do with class. Where I worked, who picked me up, whether I was going home right after school. I told myself he was just being nice. That is what everyone else thought. And when everyone else thinks someone is normal, you start doubting yourself. One day, after class, he asked me to stay behind. The other students left. The hallway got quiet. He closed the classroom door. Not locked, just closed. But the sound of it made my stomach tighten. He walked back to his desk and said he wanted to talk about my future. But the conversation didn't feel like that. He stood too close. He asked if I had plans after school. He asked if I ever felt like people didn't understand me. I kept giving short answers. I wanted to leave, but I didn't want to make it awkward. Then he said something I still remember. "You know, you're more mature than the others." That sentence made everything click. I grabbed my backpack and said I had to go. He smiled like he knew exactly how uncomfortable I was. For the rest of the year, I avoided being alone with him. If I had to ask a question, I waited until other students were nearby. If he asked me to stay after class, I said I had somewhere to be. Nothing dramatic happened. No police, no huge scandal. But sometimes the scariest stories are the ones where nothing happens, because you left before it could. Years later, I still think about how many people called him a great teacher. And I wonder how many students felt the same way I did, but never said anything. An empty classroom can feel wrong, but an empty school after dark feels worse, especially when someone knows exactly where your locker is. Story 4. My stalker from 9th grade. It started with school picture day. I had some of my photos in my locker. Nothing strange. Everyone had pictures that year. Friends traded them, wrote little messages on the back, stuck them in binders or lockers. I didn't think anyone cared about mine. Then one photo went missing. I thought maybe I had dropped it. Maybe a friend took it as a joke. Then another disappeared. A few days later, I found one of them folded inside a textbook. But there was writing on the back. Not from me, not from my friends. It said, "I see you after school." I didn't tell anyone at first. I was embarrassed. And honestly, I was scared they would laugh. That Friday, I stayed late with friends because there was a football game. The school felt different at night. The field lights were bright outside, but the hallways were mostly empty. You could hear the crowd from far away. Cheering, whistles, the announcer's voice echoing through the building. I went inside to get something from my locker. Alone. That was stupid. I know that now. As soon as I opened the locker, another folded photo fell out. It was one of mine. On the back, someone had written, "You shouldn't be alone." I froze. Then I heard a locker close somewhere down the hallway. Slowly, I turned. At the far end of the hall, someone was standing there. I couldn't see their face clearly, just a figure under the school lights, watching me. I didn't wait to find out who it was. I slammed my locker shut and ran back toward the football field. When I found my friends, I was shaking. The next week, I told a teacher, then my parents. The school never officially found out who had been doing it, but after that, I stopped keeping photos in my locker, and I never went back into the building alone during a football game. Because the scariest part wasn't the message. It was the fact that whoever wrote it knew exactly when I would be alone. 4 school stories. A man following students home. A boy who somehow knew her number. A teacher who made an empty classroom feel unsafe. And a locker that became a warning. School is supposed to feel normal, safe, routine. But sometimes, the scariest thing is realizing that someone has been watching that routine, closer than you ever noticed. Which story disturbed you the most? Tell me in the comments. And subscribe to Cold Room Mysteries for more true horror stories.